power, as most of us imagine it, belongs to the one who possesses the most money, status, armies, followers, or influence. We picture rulers cloaked in wealth, those commanding vast empires, celebrities adored by millions. Yet hidden beneath this surface lies a paradox so profound it unsettles the very foundations of our assumptions. Often, it is not the one who craves everything who holds the real power, but the one who desires nothing at all. Consider the man who is consumed by endless longing. His days are restless, spent chasing what always escapes his grasp. Every victory feels temporary, every possession breeds new hunger, every triumph leaves behind an echo of dissatisfaction. He is never still, never free, always bargaining with the world for just one more piece of fleeting satisfaction. Though he may look powerful, he is in truth enslaved to his own desires and to the forces that promise to fulfill them. Now picture another. He sits quietly, unmoved by the glitter of possessions, untouched by the lure of status. He neither begs for attention nor competes for recognition. His lack of desire confuses those around him, even unsettles them. And yet, paradoxically, his detachment commands respect, even authority. Others sense in him something untouchable, a kind of freedom they cannot comprehend. For he cannot be bribed, manipulated, or threatened in the way desire-driven men can. This paradox has haunted philosophy for centuries, but it was Arthur Schopenhauer who articulated its essence with ruthless clarity. For him, the root of human suffering was not poverty, nor injustice, nor fate itself, but the insatiable striving of desire, the endless hunger of the will that gnaws at the heart of every living being. To live in desire is to live in chains. To escape desire is to discover a strange kind of liberation, one that can appear almost godlike to those who remain trapped. And here lies the haunting question. Why is it that the men who refuse the chase end up being the ones silently pursued? Why is it that those who step back from society's games, from its temptations and rewards, seem to bend the very fabric of those games without ever lifting a hand? What if true power is not in acquisition, but in transcendence? What if the world bows not to the strongest pursuer, but to the rare figure who refuses to pursue at all? This is the paradox of power. The one who appears to need nothing may, in the end, control everything. Arthur Schopenhauer once described life as a pendulum swinging endlessly between pain and boredom. At the root of this restless motion, he identified what he called the will, not willpower in the ordinary sense, but the blind, insatiable force that drives all of existence. Every plant reaching toward the sun, every animal fighting for survival, every human clawing for wealth, status, or love is compelled by this force. The will does not ask, it demands. It pushes forward endlessly, never satisfied, never at rest. To live as a human being, then, is to live under its command. We are born into hunger, into longing, into a body that aches with needs and a mind that conjures endless desires. One moment we are chasing wealth, imagining that money will finally silence the craving. But when the fortune arrives, it is not enough. The hunger returns, dressed in new clothing. The businessman who builds an empire never sees his empire as complete. There is always more to acquire, more rivals to defeat, more recognition to chase. He is applauded by society as powerful, but in truth he is enslaved to the will. Consider the artist who dreams of creating something immortal. Each masterpiece feels like a triumph, but soon the applause fades, and the praise is never enough. There is always another canvas, another stage, another desperate plea for affirmation. His art may be celebrated, but his heart remains chained to the whispers of others. Or think of the addict, who knows with every fiber of their being that the next high will not bring peace, and yet cannot resist reaching again and again for the fleeting moment of relief. The cycle does not liberate, it tightens the shackles. Schopenhauer saw in all this the essence of human suffering. The will is not something we control, it controls us. It whispers in our ear, telling us that happiness lies just beyond the next achievement, the next possession, the next embrace. And yet when we grasp it, it dissolves in our hands. We are condemned, as he put it, to endless striving, and the moment striving pauses, We collapse into the emptiness of boredom. But Schopenhauer also saw a rare alternative, a path walked by only a few. These are the individuals who turn their gaze away from the endless chase, who refuse to be puppets of desire. Through asceticism, renunciation, or profound detachment, they weaken the grip of the will. They discover that by desiring nothing, they become strangely free. For nothing can be taken from the man who asks for nothing, nothing can corrupt the one who does not hunger for reward, and nothing can enslave the spirit that no longer bows before the will. Here lies the foundation of Schopenhauer's radical insight. Most people remain trapped because they never even recognize their chains. They confuse their slavery for ambition, their torment for purpose. But those rare individuals who see the truth, that desire itself is the prison, becomes something extraordinary. They stand apart from the world, unshaken by its promises or threats, and in doing so, they embody a form of power that is invisible yet undeniable. The first step toward understanding control, then, is not in chasing it, but in recognizing how deeply we are controlled. The chains of desire bind us all, but only those who see them clearly can ever hope to break free. Power does not always belong to those who shout the loudest, accumulate the most wealth, or command the largest armies. More often, it belongs to those who can walk away. The paradox of control is that the one who desires least almost always holds the upper hand over the one who desires most. Indifference, far from being weakness, can be one of the most devastating forms of strength. In the realm of human relationships, this dynamic is painfully clear. The person who cares less, who does not beg for attention or validation, quietly becomes the one with power. When one partner in a relationship fears abandonment while the other does not, the imbalance is complete. The fearful one will compromise, plead, sacrifice, while the indifferent one dictates the terms. Emotional detachment disarms because it is immune to the weapons of manipulation. How do you coerce someone who wants nothing from you? How do you control someone who has no need for your approval? The same logic plays out in negotiations. The desperate man, cornered and hungry, will accept any terms. But the negotiator who is willing to walk away, the one who does not crave the deal at any cost, sets the conditions. In business, politics, or war, the advantage belongs not to the one with the most resources, but to the one least enslaved by need. The poker player who wins does not win because of the cards, but because of his indifference. His opponents cannot read him, cannot pressure him, because he does not betray the desperation they themselves carry. He turns emptiness into an invisible shield. Psychology has long hinted at this truth. Attachment theory shows that anxious individuals, desperate for closeness, often find themselves controlled by the aloof. In game theory, the player least committed to a particular outcome always holds the most leverage. In power dynamics, the refusal to need validation transforms into a form of magnetism, an aura of self-sufficiency that others cannot help but respect or fear. Society itself is built on desire. Consumerism thrives on the assumption that people will never be satisfied, that they will always crave more clothes, more devices, more status symbols. The machine runs on restlessness. And yet, those who renounce this endless chase, those who refuse to define themselves by possessions or by social validation, become strangely untouchable. The billionaire who flaunts wealth is chained to it, but the monk who owns nothing possesses a kind of autonomy no fortune can buy. To the system, such figures are deeply unsettling because they expose its weakness. They reveal that the chains it uses to bind the masses, greed, envy, fear of exclusion, lose all power over the one who refuses to play the game. Indifference is not the absence of strength. It is strength distilled to its purest form. It creates mystery because it cannot be easily understood, and authority because it cannot be easily swayed. The person who needs nothing becomes, paradoxically, the one who controls everything, because everyone else is still bound by desire. This is the psychology of power through detachment, an unsettling reminder that in a world enslaved by need, the true master is the one who does not need at all. History is filled with men and women who seem to want nothing, yet ended up commanding everything. Their lives form a strange paradox. By renouncing desire, they became the very figures who shaped cultures, inspired movements, and held power over countless others. They did not chase wealth, validation, or status, yet the world willingly placed these treasures at their feet. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor of Rome. Unlike rulers intoxicated by power, Marcus constantly reminded himself of the emptiness of desire. He wrote in his journals that fame fades, pleasure decays, and wealth enslaves. To him, the only true freedom was mastery over the self. Ironically, this very detachment from power made him one of the most revered emperors in history. His authority was not rooted in greed or cruelty but in the perception that he was above the common chains of human weakness. People trusted him because he did not appear desperate to rule. The man who could live without power was the only one the people wanted to wield it. This pattern repeats in the lives of spiritual leaders. Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha, abandoned his royal life of luxury in search of liberation from desire. By renouncing worldly pleasures, he gained a following so vast it spread across continents and centuries. The Christian monks who gave up possessions, living in silence and poverty, became revered as moral authorities. Their refusal to participate in the endless chase for wealth or recognition gave them a power that kings and merchants secretly envied. Entire societies turned to them for guidance, precisely because they were untouched by the desires that consumed everyone else. Even revolutionaries have drawn their strength from desirelessness. Mahatma Gandhi, who lived with minimal possessions, brought an empire to its knees without armies or weapons. His personal renunciation of comfort gave his words a force that no lavish leader could match. People followed him because he seemed to live beyond self-interest. His simplicity became his shield, and his indifference to material rewards made him impossible to corrupt. In a world addicted to power, Gandhi disarmed empires by appearing not to want it at all. What unites these figures is not merely their philosophy, but the psychological response they provoke. In societies ruled by greed and ambition, the man who resists both becomes larger than life. His detachment suggests purity, authenticity, even enlightenment. People project their yearning for freedom onto him, mistaking his personal escape from desire as proof of higher wisdom. Yet there is another layer. Perhaps this rejection of desire is not only spiritual but also deeply strategic. If power comes from needing nothing, then detachment itself becomes the ultimate weapon. Cultures instinctively worship those who embody what the rest of humanity cannot achieve. The ascetic who renounces pleasure, the stoic who accepts suffering, the revolutionary who refuses riches, they hold a mirror to society's addictions and reveal the possibility of transcendence. And because so few can reach that state, they are elevated to mythic status. But here lies the haunting question. Were these figures enlightened souls who rose above human weakness, or were they simply masters of the most effective strategy of control, the power of indifference? By wanting nothing, they became the ones who received everything. Desire has always existed, but in the modern world, desire is no longer natural. It is manufactured. Entire industries exist not to meet your needs, but to create them. Corporations, governments, and media outlets have mastered the art of whispering into the collective ear of humanity, planting longings that did not exist until someone decided profit or power depended on them. Every advertisement, every influencer post, every political campaign is designed to keep you restless, unsatisfied, and chasing. Consumerism thrives on a simple but devastating formula. Convince you that who you are is never enough. If you buy this car, you'll finally be respected. If you wear this brand, you'll finally belong. If you collect these likes and followers, you'll finally matter. Each promise is a mirage. And yet, like thirsty wanderers in a desert, we run toward it again and again, convinced that this time, the oasis is real. Social media has become the most efficient machinery of desire in human history. With algorithms sharper than any salesman, it studies your weaknesses and serves you an endless stream of temptations tailored to your psychology. It doesn't just show you what to want. It teaches you how to measure yourself against others, ensuring that dissatisfaction is not an accident but a permanent condition. You scroll, you compare, you crave. And every craving drives the system forward. feeding the corporations that profit from your emptiness. But here is the paradox. The moment someone steps outside this cycle, they become powerful in a way that unsettles the system. Think of the minimalist who rejects material excess, the thinker who refuses the seduction of trends, or the rebel who values freedom over status. These individuals expose the illusion for what it is. When you no longer need the approval of others, their weapons of control become useless against you. Psychologists have long noted that desire, especially when engineered, operates like a form of addiction. The brain rewards pursuit with dopamine, not fulfillment. That is why new phones, new fashion, new validation never truly satisfy. They are designed not to give you peace, but to keep you running on the treadmill. But addiction has a weakness. Once you stop playing the game, once you refuse the bait, the system loses its hold. History shows that figures who embody this refusal, whether monks, philosophers, or even modern whistleblowers, often gain a strange magnetism. In a culture where everyone is desperate for something, the one who seems to need nothing commands attention. They are called authentic, fearless, or enlightened. And yet, perhaps what they have mastered is not enlightenment at all, but immunity. This raises a question with revolutionary implications. In a society built on engineered desire, could freedom itself be the ultimate rebellion? Imagine a person who is untouchable by advertising, unmoved by propaganda, and indifferent to social validation. That person cannot be controlled, because control relies on hunger. The machinery of desire feeds on your longing, but once you stop feeding it, the system starves. And so, what we call freedom today might not simply mean political liberty or financial independence. It may mean something deeper, the refusal to let others dictate what you should want. True freedom might be nothing more, and nothing less, than desirelessness. A power so rare in the modern world, it has become almost mythic. A power so threatening to the forces of consumerism and control that those who embody it often stand out like beacons, both feared and admired. If desire is the currency of control, then perhaps indifference is the new revolution. Desirelessness has long been admired as a sign of strength, wisdom, and authenticity. But there is a darker side to this image, one far less innocent. Throughout history, figures of influence have discovered that appearing to renounce desire is itself a powerful tool of control. By projecting detachment, they create an aura of superiority, an illusion that they stand above the ordinary struggles of men and women. And people, desperate for guidance or salvation, mistake this performance for enlightenment. Consider the cult leader who claims to have transcended greed, lust, and ego. He wears plain clothes, eats modest meals, and speaks in the language of self-denial. To followers, this posture signals purity, a higher truth. Yet behind the curtain, these same leaders often hoard wealth, exploit loyalty, and indulge in the very desires they publicly condemn. Their feigned indifference is not freedom, it is theater, a mask that secures devotion and obedience. The same pattern can be traced in politics and empire. A ruler who appears unshaken by luxury or temptation is revered as disciplined, almost divine. By refusing what others chase, they gain moral leverage, convincing subjects that they serve something greater than themselves. But often, this image of restraint is carefully constructed. It is not detachment, but a calculated display designed to magnify power. The leader who seems above desire becomes the one most desired to follow. Psychologically, this works because humans are wired to admire those who control what we cannot. Where most of us are entangled in craving, approval, money, love, the person who appears untouched becomes a projection of our own longing for freedom. But projection is dangerous. It blinds us to the possibility that what we admire may not exist. The supposed sage may simply be a strategist. The renunciate may secretly crave domination, not liberation. This paradox unsettles the very idea of desirelessness. Can it ever be truly genuine? Or is it always, at least partly, performance? Even the philosopher who rejects riches gains the currency of reputation. Even the monk who turns from the world receives the offering of reverence. In renouncing one form of desire, another form often emerges in disguise: the desire for influence, for recognition, for control over the hearts of others. The lesson is uncomfortable but necessary. Desirelessness itself can be weaponized. It can inspire, but it can also deceive. What appears to be freedom may in fact be manipulation. And those who seem most indifferent may sometimes be the ones who secretly desire the most, not for themselves, but for your surrender. At the end of this journey lies the question no philosopher, no prophet, no strategist can answer for us. It is the question each of us must confront in the silence of our own minds. Should we renounce desire to escape its chains, or is desire itself the essence of being human? Schopenhauer believed the answer was clear. To him, life was suffering because life was desire. The endless striving of the will, to live, to consume, to conquer, to love, was a cycle with no rest. Each victory dissolved into new hunger, each satisfaction revealed a deeper emptiness. Liberation, he argued, could only be found in stepping outside of this cycle. In art, in compassion, in ascetic renunciation. To live without desire was to finally glimpse peace. But Nietzsche saw the same picture and rejected it. To him, the bleakness of Schopenhauer was a betrayal of life itself. Desire, struggle, striving, they were not chains but sparks. Without them, there would be no growth, no creation, no greatness. What Schopenhauer called slavery, Nietzsche called vitality. He urged humanity not to renounce its cravings but to transmute them into something higher, the will to power, the will to create, the will to affirm life in all its pain and beauty. Here lies the paradox that defines existence. To chase desire blindly is to become enslaved by it, tossed endlessly between hope and disappointment. But to renounce it completely risks something equally grave: the death of passion, the loss of what makes us human. For what is love without desire? What is art without longing? What is progress without the hunger to push beyond what exists? And so we stand between two truths, neither comfortable, neither easy. The first whispers that freedom lies in detachment, in letting go of the cravings that bind us. The second insists that desire is the fire that keeps us alive, and to extinguish it is to live in shadows. This tension cannot be solved once and for all. It is not a puzzle with a neat answer, but a mirror in which we see ourselves, our choices, our fears. Some will choose the path of renunciation, seeking peace in simplicity, silence, and detachment. Others will embrace the storm, riding their desires into creation, conflict, and transformation. And perhaps the most haunting realization is this: whether you renounce desire or embrace it, you cannot escape responsibility. Responsibility for what you choose to pursue, for what you allow to rule you, for what you become in the process. So the question remains, burning, unresolved, unshakable. Are you ruled by what you want, or by those who want nothing at all?